Hey guys, we're going to try something a little bit different today with the new HUD setup. You get to stare at our lovely faces. While we can still might put some images and things of that nature up in between us, it's our lovely faces you get to stare at. Larger pictures. Today on Neon City Gaming Radio, we're going to be talking about Mecha. Man, we grew up on some giant robots. I'm talking sexy, heavy, thick, armored, bipedal, or more legged armored fighting vehicles with barrels and the hundreds of millimeter ranges and last names that end in heavy industries. It's mech time.
That was always one of my favorite things, the fact that it was so-and-so heavy industries. Not realizing that that was like just commonplace over in Asia for a lot of their like Samsung heavy industries, Toshiba heavy industries.
Yeah, I can't remember the actual name of the company, but it's something heavy industries that produced the I think it was the Karatas. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's an actual
I don't have a clue.
It's an actual quadrupedal lack of a better term, humanoid vehicle in Japan.
Like it's currently in service, or is it like that the company that was trying to make that Gundam that was like the giant? It took 2 steps while on the dock kind of thing, and was like, you know.
No, not the like Gundam statues. Those are like art installation pieces. I can dream, but no. Karatas is like, it's large enough for a single pilot or driver to sit in the cockpit. It closes down over the driver. It's got 4 legs that can actuate. I've only seen it move up and down. And each leg terminates in a wheel, like a road wheel. And so it drives along the ground. It has been, I think I've seen it armed with what can only like pneumatic giant airsoft weapons.
And was it the one that wasn't like that battle robot? Where it was like they battled each other in like one of the TV shows. I can't remember what it's called, but there's 2 teams going at it. It was like, hey, in a year we're gonna battle each other, okay? Yes.
Yeah, that's.
And they had the drones flying around, taking the shots of them like fighting each other.
But the American one, I know they put like giant pneumatic paintball cannons on, and it looked something closer to a Battletech.
Okay, yeah, because it was the Americans versus Japan. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, but we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
Off topic, yeah.
Way ahead of ourselves. What was your first encounter with those big, sexy, towering metal behemoths?
In general, it would have to be the Iron Giant. The Iron Giant would be one.
Oh wow, the Iron Giant was one of your first encounters with.
Yeah, because that was what 1998, 97. When did that movie come out? And then Akira, if you can technically classify that monstrosity at the end as a robot, but I don't think so.
Are we talking about Tetsuo?
Oh no, I'm thinking of Rojin Z, not Akira. Rojin Z.
Oh, okay. I was like, Tetsuo had mechanical bits, and
then of course you gave your Gundam, and then when did we play the first Armored Core? I guess that would be my first playable.
We played Armored Core 1 when it came out on PS1.
I completely spaced. Genome probably would have been my first, like,
true
Mecha
Genome
game that I got into. Yeah, that like 90s weird Mech Warrior ripoff where you were supposed to be hunting these like green spiky alien mutants, but I never once got to that part of the game.
It was a PC game that was a mech simulator. The entire thing was first person. It was from the cockpit perspective. And we were little bitty kids playing on this computer, and it was so complicated. I don't think we ever made it past the tutorial more than a handful of times, because if your mech took too much damage, you were ejected from the cockpit, and then you were just the pilot running around with small arms trying to fight this giant mechs.
I used to do that on purpose because you could jump, you could hero Yui it, pop it, self-destruct. Did you play with the? What was it, the standard controls or the easy controls, where the legs were locked to the facing of the.
Oh, locked to the facing of the torso, so you could bend the
Yeah.
torso. Nah, no, man. You wanted to know how strafing was like the best tactic, just like it was in the old Mech Warrior games.
Yeah, but it's like nigh impossible until we had a freaking joystick, the Sidewinder back in the day. Back when, before mice and keyboard were like the go-to control for everything on PC. Like
Back when you had to go get the Thrustmaster 2000.
Yeah, or the Sidewinder's the one I had. Microsoft Sidewinder.
So my first encounter with, so Mecha, in general, giant robots, holds a special place in my heart because it is one of the earliest childhood memories I have. So it was late 80s, I want to say. I was in Kuwait. And in Kuwait, they, for some reason, one of the only things they had dubbed into Arabic that was a really popular cartoon was an anime from Japan, and it was called UFO Robo Grandizer. Why they had UFO Robo Grandizer dubbed into Arabic for whatever reason, I'll never know, but it played on the TVs there, and that was the coolest thing ever. It was my introduction into anime, it was my introduction into Giant Robo, or Super Robo, and as we record this, I found out yesterday or 2 days ago that they're rebooting UFO Robo Grandizer. And it's just one of those 1970s, 1980s, like Go Nagai giant Super Robo, kind of like Mazinger, or
well, I guess you saying that, I guess I lied accidentally. Technically my first robot would have, in that case, would have been in that era of like dudes in a suit fighting, Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah,
I was a huge Toho and freaking Godzilla fan. Like I used to watch all of those, and he was one of the, because he was fully robotic, so he was the first Mecha I guess I would have truly been introduced to, because I was like 6 or 7.
Yeah, it was so cool. And then also when we were real little, Power Rangers was real big. And Power Rangers I would consider Mecha. Because if you consider Zoids Mecha, you've got to consider Power Rangers Mecha.
True, true.
Or Super Robo, at least. But it was all over the top. Everything exploded. Giant robots with swords and lasers. And my favorite
Sparks
part about Grandizer is his like screw punch. He had this like little sawtooth design on his forearms that would flip forward and spin. And he would like rocket punch people. It was so cool. It was so cool. And then found my way into Gundam later on. I got into the UC Century stuff, the like original Gundam series with Amuro and Char, Zeon and Federation, and then the other like alternate century spin-off series later on. But I fell in love with Mecha early on, and I've always loved it.
Well, I mean, what kid doesn't like dinosaurs, trains, trucks, and giant robots? Like those are like the big key things that just kids love. Because I mean,
well, I think it's
because they're bombastic and like over the top, crazy.
That's what it is. That's what Mecha is it's every person's love for dinosaurs and cars like crammed together into one just ferocious metal beast.
Speaking of old school Mecha game, do you recall? I don't remember the name of it, but difficult. We only had the demo disc up. But it was...
So I know what you're talking about, and I don't know what it was called in Japan, but the demo that we had for it was called Robot Alchemical Drive, I think. RAD.
Was the shoulder buttons, the legs,
and each shoulder button. Well, two of the shoulder buttons were legs, two of the shoulder buttons are arms, and then you had to.
Yeah. They were just,
and so you had to literally
Tokyo.
walk by alternating L2 R2.
Woof. God, that game was good and bad at the same time.
What made that game very difficult was that not only were your moves so very deliberate, but you had the buildings in the way and collateral damage to worry about, but you weren't actually in the robot piloting. If you remember, you were a person with a jetpack and a remote control in your hand, and you had to position the controller so they could see the robots.
The kid version, because we were At least I was kids. Or kids. I was a kid back then.
You were 2 children, I remember. It was very awkward growing up.
Until the osmosis happened, and we just kind of,
Yeah, that usually happens in utero. It was really awkward that it happened 16 years later for you. Mechs tried to take off in the States. Battletech, which has been around for ages.
Bit. Battletech, Robotech, or it was Robotech over here, right?
Well, so Robotech was the Harmony Gold amalgam of like 3 different anime series that was on TV. But it was Robotech, it kind of ties in because it was Robotech that really kind of lit the fire, I think, under the Battletech gaming system. Because I know they used a lot of art assets from that show for the mech designs in Battletech. Which, have you ever played? It's a tabletop wargaming. I know you're not into wargaming.
It's not that I'm not into it. It's,
well, you never got.
I have my own addictions to take care of. I don't need miniatures to add to it. Okay, I can never get them.
But why?
Magic the Gathering too,
they're
like
so
expensive.
Wonderfully over-expensive and time-consuming, and you'll never find anyone to play with. But damn it, they're yours. I was lucky enough to have people to play BattleTech with, and subsequently Mech Warrior, which is one of them is a tabletop game where you play the pilot, and one of them is a tabletop game where you control miniatures of mechs and use weapons and things of that nature.
Wait, that they're both tabletop?
Mm-hmm. So Mech Warrior.
See, I thought Mech Warrior. Well, before you explain to me the correct thing of what they are, I'll explain what I thought they were.
Before you tell me the actual facts, let me tell you the fantasy world in which I inhabit.
Or it's just like I always thought the BattleTech was the overarching. What do you call it? The overarching
like the world
world, yeah, universe. And then I thought Mech Warrior was just strictly the video game. Like I thought everything else was BattleTech, like the universe, the rule set, and everything. And then Mech Warrior was the computer games that were loosely tied to the franchise.
So at first it was BattleTech. Okay, BattleTech was the name of the game, and you controlled robots who had specific loadouts, armor points, tonnage, movement.
Were they in disguise?
Things of that nature. They were not in disguise. It's really hard to disguise a 100-ton Atlas. In fact, they really don't. They really want you to see the Atlas because its head looks like a giant skull. So they worked really hard on that. They want you to experience fear before taking a PPC to the cockpit.
Oh, they had some stylized mechs like that? See, I thought most Mech Warrior or Robotech jets that turn into robots.
They're called battle mechs.
Yeah, the battle mechs. I thought the battle mechs were
Battletech. Battletech is the game. Battle Mech is the mechs, are the actual battle mechs. Okay, there are clan mechs, there are proto mechs, there are inner sphere mechs.
The ones of those I like the walking cockpit, I guess is the best way to describe it. The one with like a cockpit with the missile pods and the guns and then the legs.
So
I never cared for the humanoid ones.
You're either referring to the cat or catapult, which is kind of what you... If you were to stick 2 chicken legs on a football and then put 2 cardboard boxes for ears, that'd be the catapult. Now, if you give the catapult arms and particle projection cannons or medium lasers on each arm, that's a Mad Cat, which is a clan.
They both sound cool.
Oh yeah,
all the cool ones.
All of them are cool.
The ones that in the like I've seen y'all share in the other group, to side tangent, like the humanoid BattleTech mechs look kind of dorky and goofy compared to like your Eastern humanoid mechs. Like I'll take those.
The anime mecha.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't get me wrong. They go into places that look stupid too. But the average anime mecha is like your Pat Labor and your Gundam Wing, that era. Fantastic.
Well, yeah, you had like Masamune Shiro and stuff like that designing.
Yeah, before they got
practical
crazy.
Mechs.
And maybe that's my thing is I like the mech. I like my mech to look practical to the universe, I guess. Where instead of just anime fantasy or instead of sci-fi pure fantasy, I like it to be a little harder science, I guess.
Well, back in the day, it was kind of like the Wild West of licensing. So what I was to bring it back earlier, we were talking about Robotech. A lot of the BattleTech or battle mechs in BattleTech were designed off of. Well, they were just straight line art from Macross, or what Robotech used for those mechs, the Valkyrie, that jet that transformed into
The F-14,
the robot.
Robot.
Yeah. So they used the
Oh,
robot
man.
design of the Valkyrie for one of the battle mechs in Battletech. And then there's another one called, oh my goodness, I'm going to dig deep for
While you're
this
trying
one.
to think of that, I want a side note. That mech design is still one of my top-time favorites, the Robotech one, because at that time my favorite plane in existence was the F-14 Tomcat. And I love the Delta wings that were adjustable, which it had, and then I loved robots. It was literally the amalgamation, or the combination of all my favorite tropes at the time.
So the Valkyrie really hit that for you, that design aspect?
Oh yeah, and then it had the gun in the hand, like the opposable hands that were kind of like looked a little bit like Transformer-esque, I guess, the blocky.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic. Came out at a great time. Harmony Gold did. They knew what they were doing. I mean, they did it to sell toys and make money, but I mean.
And the video game wasn't that bad either. Like there was a Robotech video game for a minute.
You talking about that cell shaded one on the PS2?
Yeah. Where you would swap between the different modes, or
Yeah.
you swap between the different modes in the different arcade rail shooter levels.
But man, we tangent. Okay, hold on.
Sorry,
Reel it back.
sorry.
Reel it back. All right. But yeah, it was Wild West on licensing. So some of the humanoid mechs were taking almost one for one from the bipedal humanoid anime mecha from Japan. And then the rest of them were just kind of design a human and then make it look boxy or robotic in some way. It wasn't until later designs that where they started to hone in on like the silhouettes of what the mechs look like and things of that nature. But some of the heavier mechs that are bipedal look fantastic. Your quadrupedal mechs, mechs,
like
20 ton mechs.
For the bipedal is the Armored Core octopus leg.
Say that again?
The Armored Core like octopus like hover legs or whatever. Those are my favorite quadrupedic.
Oh, okay. I had this image of just like these tentacles just like floating underneath the mech, and I was like, I do not remember that from Armored Core.
No, that's if the Kojima designed it.
Hey, first of all, okay, Zone of the Enders had some good orbital frame designs, and we'll get to that later.
Wait, he made that?
Hideo Kojima?
Yeah.
Yeah, he directed Zone of the Enders 1 and 2.
I thought that was just I mean, I knew it was Konami property, but I wasn't sure if he was the director on it.
Yeah, no, that was Hideo. The guy who did the mech designs was, I believe, the same guy, that artist who did the art for Metal Gear Solid.
Okay, so the same artist too. Okay, yes. I'll give him props.
But we'll come to orbital frames in a moment. Speaking about still the advent, like Battletech. So Battletech was the tabletop game. You had little miniatures of your battle mechs, and you move them around, and you roll dice, you manage heat, you see how much damage you do to the enemy, you're trying to eliminate the enemy or achieve an objective on the map. Then there was the game Mech Warrior. Mech Warrior is you're playing the actual pilot. So you're playing the pilot outside of the mech. You're like doing special forces stuff.
Question.
You're doing ground
why
war.
Why would you want to do that outside of like specifics like, hey, we need to infiltrate that building instead of blowing it up from the outside? But I mean, like, wait, you said it's a tabletop or it's a
That's tabletop.
miniature?
No, it's tabletop.
D&D tabletop,
It's
not
D&D without because you
Okay.
play D&D with miniatures.
Okay,
too.
that makes more
So,
sense. I was
Mech
just trying to
Warrior-
think of why would you want to make a game where like you're just a bunch of miniature pilots like infiltrating a zone like by that point it's just
No.
Warhammer. Play Warhammer instead. Like, okay.
Okay, first of all, yes. Now, Warhammer has its own mechs that we'll get to. But, no, Battletech was the war game. Mech Warrior was the role-playing game.
Okay, now I'm up to speed now. I was
Which had some of the
complaining.
best character creation rules in any tabletop because it was completely random, and you could make an amazing badass, or you could make a war hero quadriplegic if you were unlucky enough.
So it was all rolls. How it went?
A lot of it
Roll
was
for everything?
rolls. You got to choose your name, and then you made critical choices on like how many tours of duty you wanted to do. With each tour of duty, there's a chance you get more awesome stats, but also a higher chance you get less desirable outcomes on your dice rolls. But that was a huge, like, that's what got me, I think, into real mech, or real robo. That and original Gundam.
When you say real robo, what are you referring to?
So there's Super Robo, which is what I like. Mazinger Z. You've got Power Rangers, UFO Robo Grandizer, Go Kaiser. Giant, impossible Gurren Lagann.
So all the
giant,
super
impossible
like hero versions
Mechs.
of
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And then there's the real Robo genre. So real
Would
Robo
Big
is
O be part of the former, not the latter?
so
I assume.
Big O would.
Just
You can make an argument for
speed of
either, I
the
suppose, but that would
Okay.
be like Big O is massive. Like that's a massive bot, so it kind of trends to Super Robo. But then in the same vein, in one of my favorite real robos, the original UC Gundam, you have mobile armors like Big Zom, who are bigger than Big O, and
Big Zom is that
kind of ridiculous. But
that's the purple one with the 3 jets that was only in space.
a big purple one with 3 jets that was only in space.
It's the one that has like the open, like, it's got the open mouth and the little red spikes that come off its head, and it's got the lasers that shoot out of its hands, and has no legs. You can only use it in space.
Oh, okay. First of all, you're thinking of the Zeong, piloted by Char. No, that was a huge mobile armor, but it was not Big Zom. Big Zom was think of a giant crab, like just the body of a crab. Giant crab, green, with a massive super particle cannon in its face, and 2 huge legs coming off of it.
Okay, yes, I know what you're talking about now. Okay, because at first my brain went to the Gelgoog, and I'm like, I don't know if it's the Gelgoog. That's the one with the like spindly arm stuff, right?
The spindly arms? No, the Gelgoog is a late One Year War model mobile suit, high mobility, one of the first Xeon mobile suits to carry a beam weapon. You're thinking of the Guy series, at Guy, and oh my goodness, spindly arm. I know exactly who you're. Hygog?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Man, too bad they didn't. They have all these unique names, but they're all like very similar. So it's like,
What? You can't tell the difference between a Guy, an at Guy, a Gog, and a Hygog, and a Hyzak, which wasn't even during that same war. So, getting into Gundam.
So they are real robos.
Well, yes. So real robo, as far as the UC, what I would call the UC, Universal Century. So the UC timeline in Gundam is the one that started off with United Earth Federation forces and Zeon with Amuro and Char, and then it has continued through the years up through Hathaway. I think is the last the last movie to come out. It takes place
before they start getting into all the crazy, like, out there Gundams. Because, like, my favorite Gundams were those types where it was the real robo, I guess, where they felt feasible.
Yeah, the Gundams have, or the mobile suits in UC Gundam have ammo capacities. They have fuel consumption. You have to worry about weight, power ratio, armor.
They're usually transported on trucks.
Yeah, they're usually deployed using military tactics as escorts, or carried somewhere on carriers like White Base, or their own skiffs. They're not just super robos. But then later on, some of the UC Gundams get into like Gundam Unicorn, where you have psycho frames and things of that nature, where new type abilities come in, and they're doing some pretty super robo stuff.
Yeah, that's what I stopped getting. That's when I kind of fell off the Gundam series, when it started getting into new types of stuff. Because I prefer, again, like most of my, I prefer hard sci-fi a lot of times for soft sci-fi. When it comes to Mecha, at least. Not that I hate soft sci-fi or whatever. When it's more about the story, or whatever. But it'll have to be its own, like, not that I'm a hater of that genre. I don't like it in Gundam. Does that make sense? Like, I can do that, and like, I could watch Super Robo all day if it's another series, but when bringing it into Gundam, it's like, I want
Well, it
this
started
type,
off-
you know, this is what I want over here. More of this, you know.
It started off Yoshiyuki Tomino, the creator of Gundam, and Vodums too, I think.
What about Bottom?
Vodums.
Oh.
It's another mecha anime that predates Gundam. That's Real Robo. And but what was I talking about? Oh yeah, he introduced new types because it was Gundam is supposed to be, the whole thing is supposed to be anti-war. The
You just wouldn't know it
novelization.
from watching it.
Well, because the anime was made to sell toys.
Right, yeah. So it's like
and it was
Pokemon, we
made
have to
to-
make a new one every freaking chapter.
And that's what it was. That's what the mobile armors were. Those giant super robos is because every week or so you had a new mobile suit introduced. You had it started off with, you had the Zaku. The Zaku was the bad guy. Then you had the Goof with Ramba Ral, and then you had the Gelgoog, the Zeong, the guy, the At guy, the Dom with the black tri-stars.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what it was. But like no, new types are supposed to be very empathetic. They could feel what other people were feeling. That's why, like, every time Amuro had to engage in combat, it literally just chipped away at his psyche. It was like killing him every time he had to kill someone because he felt it.
So I didn't know Amuro and Char were new types. I mean,
yeah.
I probably knew from watching it back in the day, but like maybe I like the Metachlorians in Star Wars. I kind of blanked that part out of my mind.
Well,
I just assumed they were ace pilots that were like just good because they were either naturally inclined or, you know, good training.
And back in the day, unless you watched it in order, which was hard to do in the States,
like, yeah,
and you were able to keep up with it, you were old enough to realize what was going on, because anime had back then a habit, and I mean still today, to over dramatizing everything. In order to do that, they usually have visual clues and a sound effect. Well, every time Amuro and Char did something new typey, they had a very unique sound and a visual like spark or ha-ha. And for us in the States who grew up with Speed Racer, who over dramatized everything, you probably wouldn't have even noticed.
That's really the race like.
But Gundam, oh my god, you scared me. But I love the Real Robo. I don't know, it was something about, because when I was a kid I had a bunch of books about fighter aircraft and military aircraft, and I was really into like tanks and things of that nature.
That's the thing with the white squares that text is on? Oh.
Yeah, it's the thing you know, when we use the corpse of felled trees and we shave it down and then we print our written word on it to pass down knowledge to generations, or that's how we used to do it. Now it's just clicking on links and watching two idiots in Windows speak at each other over vast distances. Please like and subscribe.
Right?
But no, I was really into, I just thought they were so cool. It was just, it's the engineering behind it. It's the, wow, we have this huge crafted hunk of steel and engines and fuel whose sole purpose is to haul a weapon system up into the sky to destroy other weapon systems. Like when you break it down to it's just what military hardware is, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's just, what is a tank but a giant protective shell around a force multiplier to the will of whoever's behind it and enact that. It's an act of force. And so
you bring up
I
a good
love
point. Sorry, I don't mean to stop your roll there, but you bring up a good point about mentioning the tank to tie it again to my distaste for the later series of those type of mecha. Gundam specifically is the tank is a force multiplier and excels in certain circumstances, but it still has to have its support like its logistics. It still has to have infantry, you know, help. It's not going in by itself and winning the war kind of thing. Where like the later new types were pretty much like, yeah, we have a whole faction of military, like you just see them on screen for 5 seconds and get blown away, and then my hero is going to come in and be like, and I save the day. Like, where like tanks, it's cool that it's a big force multiplier, but it's not super. I mean, it's super in realistical senses, but it's not
within
magical,
the confines of entertaining fiction.
And that's to me what also drives me to Mech. The look, like I love it when you see the establishing shot of where they climb into the cockpit, and then they had grabbed the controls and they just sling them forward, kind of thing, as they get adjusted, bring the monitors down, throw the helmet on, freaking cockpit goes because like that stuff is like, I love it when they animate that shit.
So that's why you really like Thunderbolt.
Yeah, like I love show me the quick like shot of like the chamber cycling as they pull the thing back, or I don't know why. No. That shit's tight to me. Like
Sorry, we're gonna. I guess we're gonna. This most of this podcast is gonna be just us harping on UC Gundam, but that's because Flow Drives loves him some UC Gundam. I'm just gonna real quick. I've just got a whole shelf full of these, just like right above my camera here. This is my real grade Zaku.
That's 2. Not fair, because we're filming this before Armored Core 6 comes out. I have pre-ordered the special edition. Unfortunately, not the one with the garage, but the one with the at least the mech, the core, the core unit, and I can't show mine off on screen. So fuck you.
That's okay. That's okay. No, we can just. I got to show off my babies, my Zakus. Something about the gritty nature of the grunt units. I like the grunt units in Gundam way more than the specialized unit. The RX-78-2, the title Gundam from Mobile Suit Gundam.
Yeah, the OG classic.
Yeah, he was a prototype for the GM, which is another grunt unit. But the original, outside of the mobile armors and things of that nature, and the utter invincibility of Armor Array in the RX-78, no real super like indestructible mechs. Like even Char gets hit some of his mechs wrecked, some of his Zakus, and
yeah, it was before mechs were going so fast it gave the pilots heart attack. Sorry,
Char always went fast.
That's my last. Okay, because we're gonna have to move on to other mech series as well, or IPs. But yeah, that's my last dig at the Gundam franchise. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It's when they get the Tallgeese for the first time.
Okay, so make a distinction beforehand. Tallgeese is from Gundam Wing, which is an alternate century timeline. It takes place in a completely different. That I would argue, those Gundams, that's Super Robo.
Yes.
Now it has military grunt units, but like what were they? The Leos and the Aries, they were all named after astrological symbols.
Yeah, they were mostly just cannon.
And they were made out of they were made out of magnesium, spray painted in phosphates and gasoline, because every time one of the main characters looked at one of them, the entire wing detonated.
And then they made it even more zombie-esque in terms of like they made them all drones later on. Which, looking back then, it was a bit out there, but now it's like that's commonplace. Freaking mechanized robots, drone AI.
If we ever had mechanized units, they would have to be drones. That's how it is when in a lot of the.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's how it is in a lot of the Zone of the Enders with their orbital frames. A lot of them are drones outside of the main.
Before we switch, the last thing I want to say that I do love about Gundam, especially the UC Gundam, the whole lore behind why they had to use mechs instead of like missiles aren't as popular. Like you have dumbfire rockets, but you don't have like homing missiles like that. The whole what was it, the Starspeed product rules or whatever.
And so this is a good lead into actually talking about real robot, like the viability of real mecha. There always has to be some kind of contrivance for mecha anime to exist in a semi-realistic sense. In Gundam, it is the Minovsky particle, which is a particle that is given off by the technology of that time, the Minovsky reactor, which is a compact nuclear reactor that provides much, much more multiplied power output than what we currently have, and it's a much smaller package. And it's
that's where they come from?
Yeah. The Minovsky reactor.
Maybe I was maybe I was mistaken. See, I thought it was from the original colony being dropped on the Earth, causing them the atmosphere to be coated in those particles that were given off from the destruction of the falling of the original colony.
You may be misconstruing that with another Gundam series.
Okay.
But the Minovsky particle effect is from the Minovsky, is basically off-gassing from the Minovsky reactor, which is what powers a lot of the battleships, a lot of the technology.
Well, I assume
and every mobile suit.
Gundams, or mobile suits, I assume.
Yeah, the mobile suits
you'd have to have
compact,
some kind of power source. Yeah, I never thought about that. Always
they are nuclear. That's why sometimes you'll see a mobile suit get nailed with a cannon or a beam weapon, and then the pilot will die, or the mech is disabled, but it just keeps floating through space. And other times when they're cut through the midsection, right below the cockpit usually, that's a reactor hit, and that's when you see those giant pink explosions. But the reactors are necessary for driving the power of the actuating mobile suits, all of the engines and hydraulics, things of that nature. And then you have beam power output.
Kind of thing.
Oh yeah, that's one of the things I love about UC Gundam is the Real Robos, and the Real Robo series in general is just how in depth they go.
Yeah, and that too. I mean, I don't know as much as you do in terms of that because I haven't gone down that rabbit hole in like quite some time. That's why I love having these conversations, because like I just learn stuff left and right about
so one of the
and more stuff that I hate.
The reason they are humanoid shaped, the reason they're bipedal, is because you can engage on the surface of an asteroid. You can engage inside and on top of colonies, on top of these giant battleships. If you land a mech land a mobile suit on them, you can just take it out while you're standing on it. And also because it saves on power when free floating in space, because of the AMBAC system. The AMBAC system is a actuating, I guess, macro or driving force on the mobile suit that allows it to maneuver, twist, and turn without using any kind of fuels or vectoring engines. Which is based off of it's based off of a real technique that astronauts use to orient themselves in space without using any kind of thrusters. And it's used just
how does that work? Is it like gyroids? Or...
It's hard to go into with my limited knowledge of physics, and B, without explaining a lot of physics. But it's basically
channel, so.
Yeah, this is you guys didn't sign up for Neon City Gaming to get a breakdown of conservation of momentum in human bodies in the zero gravity environment. But that's basically how it is. When you move your arm, and if you stop it suddenly, that momentum has to go somewhere. And because there's no gravity or friction in space, when you stop your arm suddenly, it carries the rest of your body in that direction. So
it's similar to the old Space Sim games where you would, especially the Tachyon, for those old Space Sim fighters, Tachyon, one of the things that was a slide button where you'd usually hit your thrusters real quick to shoot off in one direction. The person you're targeting is over, you're tracking it, but to conserve on your own energy or fuel, you lock in that vector, and then you could still move your axis, the entire ship.
Yeah, you're not going to slow down. There's no air friction. You're not going to slow down. You're going to continue on that path with that same amount of energy at that same vector. You can actuate in any orientation you need to. But it's just stuff like that. This is that hard sci-fi. But the Minovsky particle is the MacGuffin science mumbo jumbo that allows mechs to not just get targeted from 15 miles out from beyond visual range by an aircraft and taken out by an air-to-ground missile.
And then, to be fair, these also came out when rockets or missiles, they were very capable back in the 80s and 90s, but nowhere to near to now where you can lock onto them 5 miles away and just pop it.
But they're also huge targets. That's one of the things about the mobile suits. Like even for real robo, mobile suits are large, very large, very heavy.
for continuing that too. Yeah.
Which are two limiting factors in like what the reason we don't have mechs today. Because when you grew up watching Gundam or playing Armored Core. Because in Armored Core, you can, especially the newer Armored Cores,
I do
4
realize
and
that
5.
we've been talking for 40 minutes and we have very little game talk. Is most of it UC Gundam?
No, we're talking about mechs. This is all about mechs, all right?
Okay.
Anime, movies.
Okay, bet. I'm done. I'm done for it. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Keep rolling.
Neon City Gaming, but it's Neon City Gaming Radio, so we're going to talk about what the hell we want to.
Bet.
What was I talking about? Oh, but like Armored Cores, especially in the later Armored Cores, constantly thrusting, constant vectoring, changing directions, things of that nature, which, by the way, in atmosphere or in space, would absolutely liquefy any pilot. It's one of the things.
Even in space? Well, I mean, I could see, like, the constant stationary gyration push, but, like...
Well, I mean, if you... Something you...
Oh, you're talking about, okay, like that scene in, have you seen any of The Expanse? There's this one guy who, he's a side character, he's just a side character. He's a thrill seeker. He's a dude who does extreme sports kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he's going to slingshot his ship around Jupiter and to try and get as fast as he can to go through the portal, right? Just to see what happens, right? Because no one's been through the portal. And he's just like, he's one of those like...
That's not thrill seeking. That's called suicide.
Well, like...
Very complex suicide.
I don't know how... Yeah. Well, yes. Because what happens is he finds out the hard way that it is it just stops his ship, like, instantly. Like, it stops his ship when he gets there, and he's live streaming the entire thing up to that point. And yeah.
Oh, he's streaming something.
So, and it shows it. It shows the inside of the cockpit just explodes all over the screen. Like, it's graphic and like crazy. It's
oh wow.
It's an interesting show.
I mean, you did a good job. Now I kind of want to see this. I've had friends talk about it, but I've just never. It wasn't it like a multimedia thing, didn't it? Isn't there like a video game, a novel series, comic books, and a movie?
It was originally a book series, and then now it's a TV show.
I got it, but it sounds cool. It sounds like the high five. But yeah, no, that's the difference between Super Robo and Real Robo. Is Super Robo, you will take a punch from another giant robo and you're like, oh no, I'm flying back while speed lines happen and I'll get a bloody lip for some reason. Have you ever noticed that? Like, the mech will sustain damage and then the pilot's like, bleeding from their forehead and their eyes. They have a helmet on and there's no damage to the helmet and you're like,
it's the Star Trek shaking the fucking...
It's exactly, it's like, sparks flying out of random bands.
Captain Kirk bleeding from his forehead
and then there's
in his seat.
And then there's Real Robo, which one of my favorite descriptions is from the Mobile Suit Gundam novelization, which was written by Tomino. I believe the novelization was written after the anime series started, but it's closer to the original vision Tomino had for the series. And the beam weapons in the original Gundam, the beam rifles create a Minovsky field that is then filled with hypercharged plasma and electrons and just projected out. And when it makes contact with an enemy, the Minovsky particle smashes into the physical barrier of the armor, and then the hypercharged plasma just continues going, and it passes through the suit. That's how the damage is done to the enemy.
Would the plasma need the Minovsky particles to punch through?
Well, so it needs...
Or is that the thing that's just keeping it into the bolt like
yes
form?
Yes. So what I was saying, good pickup, because the Minovsky field deteriorates over distance, so those beams don't just go on forever into the sky and then ruin some alien's day 4,000 light years later.
Right, it makes it a plasma instead of more of a laser weapon.
Right. So the Minovsky field starts to deteriorate over distance, and there's a description of a quote-unquote near miss where I believe it's a Xeon pilot dodges his Zaku out of the direct fire of a beam weapon. The beam weapon hits the suit, but it's just a grazing shot. But it's at a range where the Minovsky field is deteriorated, and supercharged particles have passed through the pilot's body and killed him. So the suit has minimal damage, but the pilot's dead. Balls. You want to talk about balls?
Oh yeah, balls. I forget balls were in the original. I thought they were the alternative, but I forgot that was
man,
one of the first.
We tangented so hard. What was the original topic? Oh, realistic, like why you can't use mechs in real life.
Oh yeah.
It started off with Minovsky particles, then we got off on this whole thing.
Like a bunch of nerds, we got hooked to one thing. We were like, hold on, we got to nitpick this until we get down to the bottom of it.
There's people right now who are just like skipping along the timeline in the video, like, motherfucker, when are these guys going to start talking about robots? So Minovsky particles allow mobile suits to work in that universe. In Armored Core, the cores are so fast, and there's so many like jamming electromagnetic. There are energy shields in Armored Core that stop ballistic and energy weapons, but you couldn't really do that in real life. That high mobility, that's where we were. High mobility, pilots can't survive those kinds of G-force changes.
Yeah,
drones may be able to.
Saving a person falling out of a building rope kind of thing.
Yeah, it's still a sudden stop.
Yeah.
But then also you'd have to the power supply thing. You've got to worry about, like, if number one, is bipedal motion actually better than like tracked vehicles or just having an airframe?
Well, see, for me, what I thought why it made more sense than tracked versus aerial, because like those are both very good for two specific, like tracks for like wide open or slightly different terrains, where the mech can do all terrains. Like it's more of an all-terrain vehicle. Like it's not going to get stuck on the hill kind of thing.
But can it do all-terrain? Because mechs,
in theory,
it would be just so heavy. Because not only are, let's say it's a very small mech. Let's say it is relatively the same density and weight as an M1 Abrams. Okay, a tank. Let's say they're replacing M1 Abrams with bipedal mechs. A tank has all of its...
This would be awesome future, but continue and scary at the same time. Let's be real, but...
but a tank, the M1 Abrams, all of its hunky glory is spread out over the surface area of two very wide, very long treads. Now you've got all that weight in 2 points on its feet. So
they have fairly wide feet, though, don't they?
Well, the mobile suits
Gundams do. Mobiles do. I don't know about Armored Core. I know they
mobile suits have some weird physics math going on, because that lunar titanium's super strong, but man, it is apparently super light. So you have these like
it's a plastisteel, like Star Wars,
10 to 18 meter tall mechs that weigh as much as like 2 F-150s.
AT-AT.
Talking
about a lot of mass on small little. I mean, I guess those are wide leg feet, but
yeah, and AT-ATs they're mostly hollow, right? Because they're troop transport.
Oh yeah, they are a troop transport with a heavy weapon.
Yeah, because I've seen I think what was it, Rogue One that had AT-ST or not AT-ST, AT-ATs with the hangars or their cargo bays open so you can see through them.
Well, you go through it in
that's like a ton of empty space.
Fallen Empire or Fallen Order.
Yeah,
Fallen Order. You pilot one and then you go through it. Like that was one of my favorite things in that game.
I like both of those games.
Completely get off that.
Yeah, it's weight distribution. If you march a Zaku through a town center, if there's any sewers, if there's any subways, any kind of infrastructure underneath that street, that the feet are going straight through those, just due to weight. That's why you can't drive heavy trucks over certain bridges.
Well, yeah, the gross tonnage per square foot or whatever. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm sure someone's done the math, but I wonder how big the feet need to be in order for it to be more like a semi-truck.
So you'd want to spread the weight profile over a large surface area with the feet, but then you want to cut as much weight as possible, but you want the thing up armored, right? To take some hits. Because you can only make it so maneuverable, because the bigger it is and the further it needs to move, and suddenly, like, let's say there is a tow missile inbound, and you have a little indicator that tells you tow missile inbound, here comes the missile, and you don't have some kind of point defense system or close-in weapon system that can neutralize the incoming threat. So, like in so many animes, and I think this actually happens in Gundam, where a Zaku ducks a tow missile. If you sidestep, it looks like that Zaku's just going whoop, like it didn't move that much, right? It just twisted its shoulder and moved. But that pilot just moved like 30 feet in a second. And so the inside of that left side of that cockpit is just, that's pilot now. So you'd have to solve that inertial problem. This is assuming that the servos and gears and hydraulics could take that kind of movement.
Right, without shattering, yeah.
Right. Now, Evangelion gets around it because the Evas are massively huge, much bigger than anything in a real robo. But the cockpits that they inhabit are filled with a fluid.
I was going to say, like, a fluid, you have to, like, suspend them or have a fluid dampening system to even out or spread out the force on the body, kind of thing.
Yeah, Star Fox has something. Has the G diffusers. When you start up, like, what was it? Star Fox 64. And you're like, the G diffuser systems are working. That's what that does. It takes care of the weird inertial problems the pilots would have being hurled around doing those maneuvers.
Okay. If you say so, Mr. Science Man. Okay.
That's part of it. The amateur science. No, it's not scientists. I'm not doing experiments or anything like that. I just find it very interesting. This is why pilots are strapped in, right? And with airplanes in atmosphere, fighters, things of that nature, the pilot's strapped in. They have pressurized suits if they're going to be
pressurized suit with the bladder of air,
restrictive mesh on the legs, things of that nature. They have to train to do certain
it's like an actual, like,
for breathing
air
and
that causes the pressure.
Yeah,
like, not just mesh. Yeah. So.
But I mean, they have to do specialized breathing and, like, body control techniques. So they don't black out during high G maneuvers, and that's with them making these huge turn radiuses and things of that nature on an aerodynamic frame that is using plane controls, or not plane controls, but flight surfaces, control surfaces to bend air, essentially. They're using aerodynamics. And most mecha, it's just all thrust. It's all just rockets and afterburners, and then now we're going a different direction. Zaku's are a lot of things, but aerodynamic is not one of them.
Well, see, I wonder what level of force on the body for those little minutia moments, if it really would turn you into paste, if it's that high G. Okay. What I'm trying to get to, I guess, I'm not having a good tie-in, is, did you ever play Demon X Machina?
Is that the one where you're like the president of the United States and you pilot a mecha?
No. I have no clue what you're talking about. I'm sure someone knows what you're talking about, but I
Dark
have no
Frost
clue.
over here like, okay, Flo's lost his mind. We're just going to keep going and just... I swear there's a game
kind of thing or something.
I swear there's a game where you're the president of the United States and you have a mech. I don't know. We'll look it up. Someone in the comments.
I'm sure there is. There's so many different... I'm sure there is something like that out there. But no, Demon X Machina is the one that came out on the Switch originally. It's Armored Core light and more anime. Because you make a character who's everyone lives on the moon because the Earth is like a battleground between mechas and AI and stuff like that. And just like Armored Core, you have your factions or whatever, but a lot of them are orphans. And then you make your character. You can eventually make him. You can eventually trade out parts and make him a cyborg if you want to. Get advantages from your piloting.
Wow, it is Armored Core light.
And then, it's straight up, because, like, the combat is you have a mech, you customize your mech, different parts of the mech, plus the core of the computer system, and then weapons, right arm, left shoulder, right shoulder, back item. It's exactly like that. The big difference being is, one, it's a lot easier than Armored Core, and two, and three, it's got a really bad story. That's this anime, like, because it's all text where your characters are talking and they're all like stereotypes out the ass. I have different enemy characters, like they hit every single one. It seems like they'll be talking to you before the mission, they email you after the mission, and during the mission they're talking to you. But here's another problem: the missions are so freaking short. Like the longest mission I ever played, that's why I stopped playing it. Like the longest mission is like 5 minutes.
Wow.
You jump in, they give you 3 objectives. There's your objectives over there flying. The maps aren't that huge, and you go because Armored Core is a little more like again, this is how I'm trying to tie it back in together. Armored Core is a little more robo-ish in the sense of like it's a clunking moving machine. It's fast when its thrusters are on, but you can't thrust permanently because it has like the energy bar.
Did you play 4 Answer and above?
I didn't play the later one. I played up to like 3 and the mercenary one, whichever one was like the
You
mercs.
played like up through Nightbreaker, I think.
Yeah, and then so I didn't play the those. And then from watching trailers of the current one, yeah, you could slide around, but like you still have the bar. It's still not. You're not flying. You're not a flying mech. You thrust up and you can boost around, but you're not permanently flying. Where in this one, you could literally just fly. Like you don't use any energy flying. You only use energy for boosting, and it's just so you just literally fly over to your thing, shoot off some rockets, shoot your gun, lock on. It's so boring. It's so quick. You feel clunky. It's like clunky and fast at the same time. It's really weird. It's not a bad game. Like okay, it's not a great game. It exists. It was a great for people who are into that Armored Core, like let me build my character, my armor mech, and worry about weight, this and that. It just didn't really have any effect on you. Like it was too arcadey. It was like if you were to take Armored Core, boil it down to its bare minimum, and then make it an arcade game.
Because in my mind, Ace Combat is very similar to Armored Core. I know Ace Combat isn't Mecha. Well, I mean, in the traditional sense, but like the dramatization over it's that military fantasy, that like mil-spec fantasy, and the planes are realistic.
See, I didn't play the later Ace Combat. Yeah, I didn't play the later ones where they started bringing in the dramatic stuff in between. I mean, they still had it in the earlier games, but it was more muted. It was just like a quick position, like it was more militarized. Like
I'm talking about
the invaded this land and all that.
Yeah,
like,
well, I mean, you got your Yuktabanians and your Belkas and your Eurasias. But I'm talking about the like when you're in the actual missions, like your co-pilot or your wing.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about
and there's like
little cutscenes they added. Okay.
Dogfights against planes that would never be within visual range of one another. It's that mill fantasy of the aspect of fighter pilot, what a fighter pilot is. And I think so. I would say that like Armored Core and you can't customize the vehicles. Yeah, you can't customize the vehicles like the airframes like you can piece by piece. The mechs and Armored Core. I would say Armored Core and Ace Combat fill the same part of our monkey brains that makes it a cool game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they would definitely be on the same shelf if you arranged your shelf based on genre. Or
like
niches kind of thing, yeah.
Realism versus expected realism versus expected mil fantasy. Because I would argue it's the same kind of writing, the same kind of like I'm a hero, it's man-machine interface type thing. Because in
nice power fantasy,
the Japanese anime genre, mecha doesn't necessarily mean robots. Mecha could be cars or construction equipment, anything that's just mechanized. But no, I think it's like
I refuse to agree that autos and mecha are in the same category.
No,
it might be the same subgenre, but different.
I'm just saying the word is interchangeable in the Japanese language, as I understand. But yeah, no, the Armored Cores now are much faster than the Armored Core of old, mainly because controls have gotten better. Because if you'll remember, Armored Core 1, I think had like tank controls, like old school, like Resident Evil tank controls.
Yeah, Armored Core 1 was literally like a tank almost, depending on how you made your build. But yeah, it was very like your thrusters only came in a use, you know,
When
depending
you
on
wanted
how
to,
light you made your
if you wanted to
frames,
just
like,
jump
2 or 3
vertically
times.
up and
You
land
could
on
do
the next
diagonal.
platform.
Okay, it was. But I mean, a part of me, maybe it's my fan of what are they called? What is Godzilla? Godzilla and those other
Kaiju?
what genres? Yeah, yeah, kaiju. Yeah, like that kaiju fandom part of my brain, where it's like you want to hear the big like mechanical. You want to, it's tied with that Iron Man, Space Marine
Iron Giant.
from
Oh, I
Warcraft
gotcha.
thing where it's the all the machinery. I guess it's the same thing that makes people really into cars. I guess is the mechanical side of it.
Yeah, it's the same. I would say it's the same. I'm not
I
a
mean,
car guy. I watch.
Yeah, I'm not a car guy.
I watched
either.
Top
Like,
Gear for like 15 years, but
they're neat, but like I'm not gonna get big into.
but no, I think it's again, it hits that same part of the monkey brain that's like, ooh, mechanical explode. Like it's the power, right? It's power contained in the metal cage that we have engineered for it, and we harness that raw power into doing cool stuff. Those that being driving a V8 down the highway or piloting a giant mech through space and blowing up other giant mechs.
It is crazy. Both
had
in real life and fantasy, how mechanically what engineers can come up with, and of course artists rendering too, but like usually it's within like some kind of logistical know-how.
Oh, I thought
Or
mechas
just-
were squarely in the like fantasy. I thought that back in the day, I used to think that the odds of any kind of bipedal or anything resembling mecha was just never ever going to happen. And then Boston Dynamics was just like, hello there. Introduce themselves. Now we've got robots backflipping off of scaffolding and things of that nature.
It is crazy considering. Do you remember what was the Mitsubishi robot back in like the 1990s, 1980s? The white
Are
one.
you trying to
Tosimo or
Asimo? I
whatever?
think his name was Asimo.
Yeah, Asimo. Yeah, where he's just like barely going up the stairs, and he's like big and blocky.
He fell
like,
over like a lot.
Yeah. See, like that was my like little kid brain right there. I'm like, that should have got me into robotics. Really, what it should have done, but like, I didn't go that far. I'm just like, yes, the future is now. Granted, back then it was a large ask. I'm just like, oh man, yeah, in 10 years we're gonna have freaking Terminators walking around and stuff like that.
I used to think
feasible-
I was smart enough to like get into robotics and things of that nature, but then I substitute taught a robotics class, and by substitute taught a robotics class, I mean that kind of substitute where you sit in on the room and like make sure the kids don't kill each other, because I didn't know
When you just
anything.
kind of walk by, you're like, oh,
I'm just like every so often, it's like, hey, please put that other kid down. Please get that child out of the air vent. Things of that nature. Here's a crossword puzzle. These kids were working on stuff far beyond me. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. Every time where I get kind of worried about like, oh my goodness, what kind of kids these days? My kids are going to start school, and I'm like, oh, what kind of kids are they going to go to school with? What is this new generation? I always think back to that like robotics class. And I'm like, okay, hold on, they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. So let me ask you this: what makes a mecha game or show a mecha game or show? Is it giant robots? Is it people controlling those robots? Do drones count? Does Attack on Titan count as a mecha anime?
wait, what? What? Let me see if I can get your line of thinking there. Is that just because technically, spoilers for everyone who hasn't watched the Attack on Titan, is that because like they're all in the nape of the neck, the little tiny
They're
pilot
technically
humans?
piloting giant biological mechs.
And I'm gonna say no. That's more body horror than mecha, but
Because then
that's
you
because I like to keep mechas somewhat
is
neat in
is Evangelion a mecha anime?
I'd say yeah, but a super robo.
Because it's biological mecha controlled from a place in the nape of the neck.
But are they biological in the sense of like Titans? Or are they biological in the sense of like fully AI
No,
gears
they have human souls.
with the.
They have flesh
I
and
think that was-
teeth, and they eat.
I never finished the show, as you can tell.
Oh wow, okay. No, what about Escaflowne? That's a bit of a throwback. You might not be familiar.
I'd say I was more Pat Labor.
Or what was that one?
I like the more realistic Robo.
What was the one with the giant, like insect-looking mechs? They were like knights, almost like Magic Knight Ray Earth. That was Mecha. No, that was Super Robo. But well, that was fantasy. Now we're just getting off in semantics of what is and isn't Super Robo.
Well, I mean, for me, a mecha is it's got to be mechanized first of all.
Does it
More
have to be
mechanized than
military?
biological? Does it have to be military? No, because you have corporations making things. Like
Well,
technically,
I mean,
'cause
okay,
technically,
it's-
Armored Core is not military.
No.
Like Armored Core is all corporations. You know, and then so
Same thing with Zone of the Enders.
yeah, because those are made by independent, weren't they? Originally, like the first one. I don't know about the second one. But
Yeah,
I
the
know
orbital
first one,
frames.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, they were.
Jehuti
Well, then
and
again, they were
Anubis.
experimental weapon frames, weren't they? Like if they're experimental weapons frames, they're still military, right? Even if it's a private contractor, because technically planes are made by Lockheed and Boeing and stuff like that. You know, it's not the military making.
But not all
Uh,
planes are made by, or not all planes are military.
True. I mean, you got
So, like-
you have your frames, orbital frames, and that were especially in the second one, the mining, Mars. Was it on Mars? The beginning where you're mining in the giant mining mech or whatever that has to pick up the stuff and like it's a utility
Oh yeah,
The
that's
as
said
opposed to a
Dirge of
weapon frame.
servers. What's his name? Dingo. Zone of the Enders 2. Can't remember the subtitle to save my life.
I was gonna say for answer, but I think that's
That's Armored Core.
subtitle.
That's Armored Core. It's like Second Runner. That's what it's called. So, Dark Frost. Some of your favorite mecha games, anime, real life. Did you ever watch Robot? What was it called? Robot Jockeys. Robot Jocks. That's what it was. Robot Jocks back in the day. Did you ever see that movie?
I know.
It was an American-made big mecha movie, live-action movie,
I don't.
where they got the giant
Well,
mechs and they fought each other.
Kind of like the okay, so mechs, not robots. Like
Was it Robot Jocks?
Real
Robot
Steel or
Jocks?
whatever?
Something? No, not like that. They were like piloted giant mech. Gun.
the only live action mech I can think of that was any good was the Kaiju one. Oh my god, what's it called? Well, they had the
Pacific
two
Rim.
pilots.
Del Toro.
Yeah, Pacific Rim. Yeah, okay. Pacific Rim. I mean, that's a good one. To start off, of course, Robotech. That's my favorite. One of my favorite designs. The old school Gundams, like we've gone over. Armored Core is one of my favorite games for it. I pre-ordered the collector's edition coming up. I mean, granted, like I said, I didn't play the middle ones, but that's kind of also when the series, like as a whole, lost a lot of fans and kind of went elsewhere. There's a reason they didn't make a game for, so long. Well, besides the fact that they take gold with Soul Calibur, not Soul Calibur, Demon Souls, Dark Souls.
From Software.
But I want to say, would Tachikoma be? Would that be? Mecha?
Masamune Shiro's Ghost in the Shell and Tank Police qualify as mecha. I would argue
yes,
that like
if that's the
Bonaparte
case.
from Tank Police is
Metal
a mech.
Slug. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the Metal Slug.
Most of mine are definitely all pilotable. Like the ones I prefer are pilotable because it ties into the fantasy of. I just love the thought of piloting something. Like I used to want to be a pilot when I was a kid.
Ace
And,
Combat Connection.
So that those types are my favorite.
I've
Over
always
you.
liked obviously the
More.
UC Gundams, like especially just everything that takes place during the 1 Year War. I really like those mech designs. I really like the feel. I just actually recently watched Kukuru's Doan's Island. I was telling you about that the other day. It was based off of that one episode, the lost episode, the cursed episode from the original Gundam. The suit designs in that were fantastic. It's what got
Pat
me
Labor,
into
that's another good
modeling
one.
and gunpla. Oh yeah, Pat Labor, that's really good. The Mamoru Oshii movies, not so much for mecha, but they're still good movies.
Because I like mechs to be the force multiplier, it makes it more special when it's not just a super robo.
I think you'd like you should. It's an old series. You might not get into it because it's a little bit dated, but it was a good series growing up. I think you'd like Votoms. VOTOMS. Mobile Armored Troopers. Armored Trooper Votoms. Is that what it's called? And it's the mechs in that are very very real robo. They use a synthetic muscle fiber that has a hydraulic liquid in it, but the hydraulic liquid is super special and highly explosive. And so the people
more like Gears, or Gears from Sons of the Patriot onward.
Oh, you're talking about Metal Gears, like the geckos, Metal Gear geckos.
Yeah, like geckos.
Yeah, think that, but like the fluid that moves their muscles is incredibly combustible. So like they're called Votoms, but they're like the slang for them are bottoms, because they don't think they're going to survive. Like there's superficial armor on there, but like if you get hit with anything that's meant to deal with those things, you're going up in flames. That one was really good. Also, Martian successor Nadesco. The mech designs in that one.
Oh,
really
Nadesco!
Cool.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, the Estivales. Those are really cool. Those are some of my favorite mech designs. Those are really cool because they had like a flight frame, a ground combat frame, a heavy combat frame, and you just switch the cockpit. Yeah. The cockpit would eject, and you could move them. I always wanted a model of those. It's hard to find those.
Okay. What's the line between suit and mecha? Because I was gonna say like, would Bubblegum Crisis be
I was
a
just
mecha?
about to say Bubblegum Crisis. The hard suits. Or would that be... So, I would say that falls into the mecha genre. Especially some of the... Oh my goodness, what are they called? 80 Police and Boomers, that's what they're called.
You talk about the droids?
Yeah. Because that's the same Masamune Shiro. That's the same Ghost in the Shell. Wait, no, it's not. What am I thinking of? Appleseed. I'm thinking of Appleseed. That's Masamune Shiro. But even then, they have the slave suits and the Hecatoncheires guy. What's his name? Starts with a B.
You talking about the robot dude?
Secondary main character. Yeah. I remember what his designation is, a Hecatoncheires cyborg, but I can't remember what his name is.
Is that his mech name?
Yeah, that's like the model he is, but...
He's going to be Norman. That's what it is.
It's not Norman. We're not going to have another Norman situation. It starts with a B. Oh my goodness.
It is... What the...
Did it start with a B? Am I thinking of Bato? Because it's the same, but no.
See, I'm thinking Bato, too.
No, I want to say it starts with a B. Briarios. Briarios. His name is Briarios.
Yeah, Briarios.
Yeah, I'd say that
same
was
era.
Mecha.
Same era and same kind of character as Bato, so I can see they both start with a B. So.
Yeah.
I mean, in the same vein, I guess Ghost in the Shell would androids classify as mecha, or would that be?
Well, see, I think it all comes down to where you are, because technically, a lot of the what is that? There's a mangaka, Fujishima, I think his name is. He did Oh My Goddess. All right, so when you think Oh My Goddess, you don't think mecha, right? You might not even be familiar with Oh My Goddess.
I know early 2000s, like the blonde chick with the blue dress or whatever,
Belle Dandy.
Little dots in her forehead,
yeah. So Fujishima, the mangaka for that, really, really into cars, motorcycles, things of that nature. So every single thing he does has a big center around motorcycles, cars, racing, things of that nature.
Did he make X-Driver?
He did make X-Driver. He also made You're Under Arrest. Those are all heavy into centered around the vehicles, and where the vehicles are characters, and it's about being in love with the mechanization, the engines.
See, I don't remember if it was anything more than... I've only seen like the first 3 episodes of X-Driver, unless that's all there is, because looking it up...
Well, there's an OVA, there's multiple...
or maybe that's what it was, OVA. But, because to me, it was... The plot was the same as Bubblegum Crisis, as far as I was concerned.
Basically, it's just a set of boomers that were AI
because
cars.
I like the more mechanized, more mech robo side of bubblegum prices and the fact that they were older than the X Driver. But X Driver was good too. Don't get me wrong. It was good from what I saw.
And that's the one thing, talking about Mecha, we got off topic. Like we do. One of my dream cosplays I never got to do was an MS-06 F-Type Zaku. Just like I got the foam cutouts.
The layman of us in the group, can you explain which version that is?
When you think of Zaku 2, that's
the
what
bright
the
green
MS
with the one shoulder
the
pad
green
and the 3 spikes over here, the axe, and the one little pin.
Yeah. So mobile suit MS 06 is the model.
And he had the hoses too, because I think Zaku 1 didn't.
Zaku 1 did not have the cooling hoses on the helmet. So the Zaku 1's the MS-05.
Okay.
MS-06 is Zaku 2.
So what is the MS 1 through 4 for Zaku?
I think the MS. Well, there's a prototype. A couple of prototypes.
I guess the ball is what, MS-03?
Well, no, because the ball wasn't a mobile suit. The MS. So, without getting into it, then Dr. Minovsky was like, "Oh, these people are going to turn these into giant walking weapons. I'm going to defect to the Federation," and then they killed him.
Okay, why the Bugu? That is a terrible sounding.
I don't know. I'm not Zionic. Char.
That's why we can't have nice things.
That's why we can't have anything. All that matters is the goof is no Zaku boy.
Hopefully the former, not the latter.
So I'm going to tell you guys right now, watching this, if you made it this far into the video, congratulations. Or if you're listening to this in podcast mode, if this is under 2 hours, it's because I had to cut out a lot of me rambling about UC Gundam and Xeon mobile suits. And yeah, if you want to listen to that kind of stuff that we cut out, let us know. We'll put out some unedited stuff. Maybe we'll start a Patreon, put some product up there, or not product, but put some uncut stuff up there.
Oh, we got him.
Dark Frost, any closing comments on mechs, big mechs, robots, hard suits?
Let us know your thoughts in the comments if you are watching this. What your thoughts on Big Robo are? What you think? What's your classification and your hard cutoff? And what's some of your favorite games and media to consume with Big Robo? And why do you think Big Robo are some of the coolest, best concept, genre, what even call it out there?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I want to see comments on what people think. Like, where's your line? What is Mecha? What's not Mecha? What's real Robo? What's Super Robo? What's your favorite one that blends both of them? Let us know.
Feel free to correct us down in the comments too. If we completely went way off topic, or
but every episode we go off topic. They know that. You know that. There's no saving that.
And if you have any opinions or takes on what you want us to talk about in the future, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe.
Now to go write my dissertation about the effectiveness of the 120mm Zaku machine gun.